So welcome back. This one's hopefully going to be a little less awkward than the first welcome back video because I did that on my own. Ben, welcome back to the channel. Where have you been?
Why does it never go so well the second time round? Been here, haven't I, all the time?
Have you?
Yeah.
You're looking very slender there, mate.
Thanks, on you.
Thanks, mate. Nobody's been commenting on your weight loss.
No.
I must have been a right fat bastard.
Check out the old videos.
Anyway, so if you haven't already seen us on TikTok, we've been all over social media there, so as a duo. So we thought we'd continue things as we started off over there and see how it goes on here. So what are we doing today, Ben?
Well, we're going to go back over one of the videos that did quite well for us previously, which was the 425 package on the Focus ST.
You all love a 425 package, so let's get into it. So let's start off. We're going to try and keep this light-hearted, but also a bit more informative for YouTube because you hate it when we're just very vague.
Funny, but not funny.
Yeah, vague. So basically, you forge it, chuck a couple of sensors on, hey presto, that's it. It's all good, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, sorted.
Yeah, sorted. Anyway, video over. Yeah. See you later. No, so where do we start with this one, Ben?
But it's kind of difficult because it depends where you already are, essentially.
Yeah. Let's assume that they're already stage 2 because most people are already stage 2, aren't they?
They are.
So for that, you'd already have.
You'd already have quite a lot of what we needed, depending on the spec of the stuff they already had. For example, you know, if you had an induction kit on an ST225, it's going to have to go in the bin, unfortunately. You might have an intercooler that fits the bill. Your exhaust system might be okay, but it's a bit of kind of hit and miss, really.
So you join us at the engine bay. Ben's down on his knees where he enjoys being.
YouTube doesn't like that.
Oh well, I've said it now. So what we're starting off with really, so we've got an exhaust system. We might have an intercooler that might be, I don't know, a stage 2 ST or something like that. What's the most important bit of this whole puzzle?
Well, when we're asking an engine to produce or accept almost twice the power of a stock engine, pretty much the most important thing is going to be some internals, realistically.
Okay. So what is that going to involve exactly?
We're going to start by taking the engine out because the likelihood of your engine being suitable for a drop-in upgrade these days with the age and the mileage is very unlikely. So we always start with engine out, and it's going to end up being 0.5 oversized realistically, which means a bigger piston.
So what, just to disturb you there, this is an interesting topic and one that a lot of people have suggested, which is that when you slide the shims in between the liners, that it causes distortion in the bores. Would you agree with that? It's
difficult because, like, the amount of engines that we've checked that we've removed the heads from, specifically with the view to going forged internals, they've measured, they're already oval, so it's hard to say whether realistically the shims have been the issue or whether they've already had an issue, but I can accept that perhaps the shim being installed means that the bore is kind of forced to distort in other directions maybe, which...
It's not something that we think is out of the realms of possibility, but proving it would be hugely difficult.
Yeah.
It'd mean you actually sort of measuring the overall bore dimensions or the tolerances before you did anything, then installing the shim, then revisiting it in the future, the same exact car, and then how many miles do you actually do to check that? I can totally accept it as a logical theory, but there is no proof in that at all. So from there in, obviously you've mentioned that we'd oversized the block to 83.5mm. Now we send those off for machining, don't we? So we actually specifically get the set of pistons and ship those with the cylinder block. We generally use Marl pistons
these days, pretty much every build, yeah.
Yeah, so Marl pistons, and we also, at that point, generally recommend that people install a new crankshaft, don't we? And I'll leave that one to you for the explanation.
Yeah, so for the last probably 3-4 years, I think we've probably installed new crankshafts on every forge build we've done. Main reason being the wear on the seal ends. Basically, we found that reinstalling new seals on worn crankshafts, it was just resulting in oil leaks after oil leaks, and replacing the seals just never worked.
And nobody likes doing things twice, do they?
Nobody likes doing things twice.
And it's not just a case of just replacing the seal just to interrupt you. It's a case of pulling.
It's a full engine out and a full rebuild again. So it's definitely not fun. But it's also, you know, your used crankshafts had to either be polished or ground, which all involved
250, 300 quid versus a new crankshaft.
You know, a new crankshaft, which I know we've got them online at like the best part of £1,000, but you know, we do, you know, we can do a deal on that when we do an engine build.
Yeah,
so it's,
and it just means that like there's a lot of new parts. Essentially, the short motor is about as fully refreshed stroke new as you can possibly get, because you've got the new bolts, obviously, which you need, the new seals in the sump, the crankshaft itself, the bearings, the connecting rods, and the piston.
There is literally nothing other than the block internally that is reused at this point.
Exactly. And then moving on from there, for a 425 package, obviously we generally recommend that they refresh the head for the very same reason that nobody likes doing anything twice. If you're going to build an engine, why wouldn't you refresh the cylinder head? It just doesn't make any sense, does it, Ben? What would you put in the head?
If you're doing the head refresh, I mean, you know, you put set cams in at the same time, it kind of rules out a lot of the extra work. You know, the refresh of the head includes a lot of the work needed to install a new set of aftermarket camshafts. So obviously you save a lot of labour costs in the future by doing that at the same time. Yeah,
exactly. Okay, so now we've covered off the engine. Obviously, the most logical place to go from there would be turbocharger, wouldn't it? What we fit into this?
Starting point, RS turbo. You know, it sort of does exactly, you know, what we need it to do. Lots of options there, from used to new to obviously upgraded versions of the RS if, you know, we decide, or the customer decides they know they want to go further in the future, or they want to go further straight away.
Yeah, so basically we'd recommend at the base level for a stage 4 plus 425 package would be a base RS one. Obviously that includes what we deem to be the restrictor to the top of the turbocharger, the oil feed, oil return, and then adaptation in silicon, one to suit the induction and the other to suit the lower boost pipe, wouldn't it, Ben?
Yeah.
So yeah, and that leads us nicely on to kind of sensors, really, doesn't it?
So to go over to RS spec, we're going to need to run the mass airflow sensor and the MAP sensor, both of which are different on the RS models. Not only do they need to be there as part of the ECU conversion, but well, the MAF sensor specifically is a completely different fitting, and it's going to fit into the crossover that we're going to need to fit to do the RS conversion. You don't necessarily need to do the RS crossover conversion to fit an RS turbo, but you know, it's a much tidier bolt-on.
Cleans up the look as well, and it's something that most people want anyway, which is why, digressing slightly, a lot of people moved over to the RS style crossovers that we first did, that AirTech now produce in masses, as it were. I think that kind of, in this location, then leads us on to an intake plenum, doesn't it, really? Obviously, the induction part of the kit is part of it, but that's fairly obvious. But then we've got the inlet plenum. That's definitely an integral part when you're going above the sort of 380, 400, isn't it? Especially on if it was on a Focus RS, it'd be really important from the outset, but on a Focus ST at this sort of level, you'd definitely go with that, wouldn't you, Ben? What are the kind of benefits of that?
Well, it's obviously much stronger than the original plastic version. Like many would say that they've experienced some decent mid-range gains.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know, it kind of makes it feels more positive, if you get what I mean. It's hard to explain the difference the plenum actually makes, but it's a bizarre thing.
It's one that you have to experience rather than specifically be able to describe. There are no words they're failing in. But And for the same token, I can't remember. Alongside that, you've got other bits that you'd need to think about as well, obviously, including the RS VAC setup, because you've got that different induction kit. It just means that if you upgrade to either an aftermarket variant of it, which are quite cost effective really, aren't they, about 50-60 quid, versus the genuine RS one, which is probably more like 200 plus pounds these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah. So next up, once we've done that, we've got the turbocharger sorted, we've got a bit of induction intake and obviously the plenum and everything sorted. What else are we going to need, Ben?
We're going to need some injectors and realistically a fuel pump.
Okay, so what size injectors generally as a rule do you recommend for?
At the 400 plus mark, we're going to go into 750s really.
Yeah. Okay, so we could use 650s.
We could do it on 650.
Yeah, we could use 650s. It depends if you're going for that 425 sort of top end number realistically. And again, like you mentioned before, if you're going for a hybrid turbo, that does change things somewhat, but that's probably not the point of this video. Then fuel pump, obviously you mentioned, you've got bigger injectors, so you need to get more fuel there. Do you need to get more pressure or flow, or what is it that you need?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways we can do it really. The best way in an ST, if I'm perfectly honest, would be to upgrade the original pump, only because the housing fits better within the tank and you don't get all the kind of issues of incorrect fuel level readings and stuff like that. So we'd go for a higher pressure pump, a higher flowing pump, should I say. The regulator's built into the housing, so there's no way of really affecting that until you get up into the realms of the external fuel systems and stuff.
Yeah. So for the 425 package that we offer from Revo, that's the way that we'd go about it. If we were looking at going Collins software, obviously this would be slightly different. So for the Revo software, we'd use a Bosch 750cc injector, but then for the Collins software, you'd use a Siemens injector, and the fuel pump would be different as well, Ben. Tell them a bit about that.
Yeah, with the Collins software, you'd then be using a RS500 style fuel pump, which is basically an increased pressure regulator. So we run essentially, I think they're pretty much the same pressures, but the same kind of flow, but the regulator, it's a 6-bar pump instead of a 4-bar pump, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah. The standard kind of stage 2 car's probably got a really tiny kind of intercooler, really. Great enough, like, and probably good enough for sort of 350 to 380 horsepower, in honesty, isn't it?
400 on paper, apparently. So, I mean, you know, essentially you could get away with leaving it alone if they had, you know, a stage 2 AirTech intercooler, something like that. You know, it on paper it would do the job.
Might even do the 425 in fairness.
Probably, yeah.
We've seen them do them.
Yeah.
How that would fare in hotter climates and in, you know, in the summer months, especially the summer we've had, is kind of to be determined. So what would you recommend, or what would we recommend fitting realistically?
Well, stage 3 intercooler, as it's called, would be the kind of next logical step. Now, the stage 3 intercooler is actually just a stage 1 RS intercooler paired with a pair of silicon pipes, which means it fits onto all the existing, you know, the hard pipe underneath, and it fits straight onto the original plenum, just with the pair of silicon hoses. You could then go up to the stage 4 intercooler, which is the same intercooler, but the hot side pipework is increased to 2.5 inch all the way from the turbo. So
there's a lot of options, and obviously with doing that on a Focus ST, especially on a pre-facelift, you'd need to consider upgrading the radiator itself, probably to an aluminium one rather than just fitting a stock one, because why would you? The price difference is probably only about, when I say only, it's probably about 300, 320 quid roughly. But you're going to save on the labour to only do it once, realistically. But you'd pair that as well. A good point to mention is that you'd probably, at the same time as doing that, if you're going to do the big boost pipe kit, you'd probably do a set of coolant silicon hoses as well, wouldn't you, Ben?
Definitely, with the age some of the cars are getting to now, realistically, you know, the original coolant hoses are getting quite weak. They're starting to expand, and that, you know, they do split. And sometimes when you're driving, you've got no idea any of this is going on. you lose all your coolant, and you're just causing catastrophic damage. And when you've just had an expensive engine build, that is the last thing you want.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. They do blow up like balloons. You can generally see it around the actual hose clamps themselves. You can see the rubber itself almost forming like a balloon or a snake that's just eating a mouse, essentially, is the best way to describe it, isn't it? Yeah. You can see it changes colour, the hose itself, especially if the hose was obviously black originally, and becomes more of a greyer scale, and you can physically see it. It's easy to spot. Probably the most common places to see this near the T-piece that's by the thermostat and some of the radiator hoses at the lower end of the engine, and maybe even possibly the matrix as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say the matrix, definitely, yeah.
But if you're going to do one,
do them all.
Exactly. Exhausting, these long format videos, aren't they, Ben? Come on then, what's next?
Well, we're going to need basically the full exhaust system, turbo back, 3-inch at least.
That's the problem with some of the cars as well, isn't it? As they're becoming older, a lot of these cars may have already been tuned to stage 2, and some of them will have maybe a 3-inch downpipe paired with a 2.5-inch D-cap or something like that, and maybe a 2.5-inch cap back as well.
Yeah, we see all sorts of combinations of stuff coming in, and obviously it makes it kind of slightly more awkward when, you know, the customer's booked in for one thing and you tell them they need another because, you know, their exhaust system's not suitable, but they already think they've got full exhaust system. So, but yeah, we need to be 3-inch at this level.
Yeah. Sports cats. Now we've touched on the D-cats. Obviously, sports cats are legal. Does it make a huge amount of difference, you think, on the power?
I don't think so massively, not at this power level. It's, you know, I think Alan's car from here, we've dynoed his car more recently after he's, you know, refitted a cap with all the kind of latest emissions stuff going around in the press. And it doesn't seem to have had a huge effect on his car, to be fair.
If the car's set up right, ultimately at this power level, I don't think it's going to impede it hugely because, you know, for example, there's plenty of other makes and models of vehicle that have got cats fitted to the car as standard out the factory, and it's not impeding
every
them,
car that leaves the factory has a cat, so, you know, we can make it work.
Exactly. So now we've sorted the engine modifications and the power upgrades. What else do we need to consider when we're upgrading the power of a vehicle?
So really depending on the level, like we've discussed previously, of how the car is already, it's going to need a clutch of some description, whether it be RS or something even kind of more upgraded than that. Really.
That's an interesting conversation as well, because if you plan on going further in the future, there's no point in fitting a RS clutch, in our opinion, because the 425 package is realistically the limit of that.
Of the standard RS clutch,
of the capabilities of it. So we'd always recommend either an organic setup with a solid flywheel, or maybe even consider a paddle clutch. Now, some people don't like them because they're heavy. What do you think of them?
Well, I mean, to be fair, the paddles and the organics in terms of the heaviness under the foot are pretty much exactly the same, realistically. The only difference being the organic may be slightly easier to live with day to day, I would say.
100%. I think that ultimately the sacrifice that you make for maybe a slightly more positive clutch pedal feel, and I think that's what it is rather than anything else, heavy, I'd say more positive, it's worth making at the end of the day. The only thing you've got to remember is obviously that's a heavier clutch, and be aware that especially if you've built a fresh engine, you don't want to be sitting in traffic with the clutch loaded up, do you, Ben? Because what happens then?
Yeah, lots of issues can come from upgraded clutches, and especially with new engine builds. It's a huge load on the thrust bearings and that crankshaft, and you know, if you don't sort of treat it right, it will bite you.
Which is exactly why we have the procedures that we give to people when they've finished, or when we've finished running in their car. We have a specific set of instructions and guidance. We don't just go, here you go, enjoy your new car, do we, Ben? Or enjoy your new engine. In this instance, we go, right, okay, we need you to do this, that and the other for a minimum period of X amount of time, so that they're fully aware and they've got that information and they can use it and ultimately protect both their investment and our investment in time, because we don't enjoy fixing things that have gone wrong, do we?
Definitely not. I mean, people think, you know, it's great, you get, you know, you've got more work, but it's definitely not the case. There's nothing worse than having to redo something, you know, because of mistakes that people have made with driving or maintenance or something like that down the line. It's 100%. So disheartening. Yeah.
The other great comment to note is that a lot of people think that just because it's forged, it's now bulletproof.
Oh, yeah.
That is not the case, is it, Ben?
No, absolutely.
All you're doing is preparing it for more power, making it more resilient, I suppose, in many ways, but not making it so that it's unbreakable. Everything is breakable, isn't it? And by breakable, that moves us on to something else that people forget to kind of consider when they increase power, and that's stopping and handling. Now, Ben, I'll let you discuss some of this subject to start us off.
I mean, obviously, top of the tree.
Shane?
Top of whatever. You know, big brake kit, nowhere near as cost effective as they were, you know, when we did this, or some of the other 425s that we did on the channel many years ago. You know, we were doing K-Sport 8-pot 356 kits for
$999 or less back in the day.
Around £1,000.
Yeah, now they're probably more like £2,250.
Just to buy the kit. So
100%.
it's definitely not as affordable as it was.
100%. And that leads us on to your favourite subject, a good bush. You love that, don't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously with increased braking pressure becomes, you know, more stress on all the surrounding suspension components. So we'd recommend really at least upgrading the lower wishbone bushes just to stop it, you know, all the extra
creeping
flex
forwards and backwards, and the wishbone moving under braking, or that moving before it actually starting the braking as well. So there's loads of different options relative to whether you're looking for a track orientated build in terms of compounds of the actual polyurethane. There's also obviously anti-tramping kits that you can buy that stop the wheel hop, various other bits and bobs. But combined with that, we've got suspension, haven't we? Now we've made it stop, now we've made it more rigid on the road and things stop moving backwards and forwards. Obviously, we've got to set the car up to go into a corner because you're going in faster, aren't you, naturally? So what would you recommend for that?
And we'll go straight to the top with, you know, a nice set of coilovers, which obviously combines the springs and the dampers all in one, depending on the kit you go for. The BC Racing, for example, all the top mounts and everything are replaced with a pillar ball version, which you don't get with some of the actually far more expensive kits out there.
100%, and there's so many options now, right away from sort of the BRs, which is the built-in reservoirs, or right the way through to those ZX kits that they've just released with
that ZX kit.
That ZX kit that's on the floor. The ZX kit that they do, which has got an external reservoir, you can remote that reservoir, you can do lots of different things. So if you're really track focused, you can actually position that extra fluid in a different location. So it's really versatile bit of kit. The support from BC Racing as well, absolutely second to none, isn't it, Ben?
Definitely.
100%. They're just absolutely on it. So we're back at the front of the vehicle to finish it all up, really. So software-wise, Ben, what have we got options-wise for 400 plus? Let's not limit ourselves.
So we're going to have to, you know, start off with converting the ECU to basically make it an RS.
And that's for understanding the sensors that we've changed, isn't it, Ben? Mm-hmm. So there's different scaling on both the MAF and the MAP sensor.
Yeah, and the, various other issues that come along with converting it to RS, ABS module, whatever else. But in order to be able to use the software options available for that kind of power, which are all, tailored for RS, we need to start with an RS-based mapped ECU, basically.
Yeah, so we do that by taking the ECU off the vehicle and loading a stock variant of the RS software onto it. We can then, in most instances, put the ECU back on the vehicle and then apply the tune from there. So there's a few different options, isn't there? So we've got Revo.
We've got Collins Performance.
Yeah, we've got Autotech software as well. That was all obviously a really popular choice way back when. We haven't done much of that recently, have we?
Not so much, not for a while, no.
No. And then the final option, the pièce de la resistance, for those of you who want to really splash the cash. You've got what?
Well, a standalone ECU. Loads of options available there, starting, going from the ECU Master EMUs, up to the Cyvex ECUs.
What do we generally recommend?
These days we are on EMUs, yeah, EMU
That's
Black.
Probably another video, realistically. But in fairness, that's about it, really. The 425 package, stroke 400 plus package, stage 4 plus, whatever you want to call it, is probably one of the most versatile, most popular and most enjoyed packages that we offer, isn't it, Ben, realistically?
By far, it's the last point where these cars are truly
reliable
and enjoyable, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If you're considering an upgrade beyond the sort of 350 mark or anything even below that, the 425 package is absolutely for you. It's usable on track, it's usable as a fast road car, it's even usable as a daily, isn't it, Ben? You don't suffer any of the problems that you do with big turbo, reliability or anything like that. Touch wood. Realistically, there's no issues with these cars. They just you get in them, turn the key, it drives, it starts, it stops, and it does the same thing the next day, doesn't it? So,
and it does it really well and really quickly.
Yeah, definitely. So if you lot have enjoyed this content,
ooh.
You're gonna say it?
No, I can't remember any of it. It's been a while.
Okay, so if you've enjoyed this content, then please consider subscribing. If you haven't already, then please hit that
bell icon to stay notified.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And hopefully you'll see us in the next video if Mikey hasn't resigned. He's the new cameraman.